Welcome and good evening. Today is Tuesday, July 15th, 2025, and the time is 6 p.m. I will now call the regular meeting will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the city as a housing asset successor, Joint Powers Finance Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call the roll?
Councilmember Godin.
Here.
Councilmember Irving.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Mayor Becerra.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I'll ask you to stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Joseph Flores with the Gate Church, and our pledge will be led by Captain Jerry Davenport.
Thank you, members of the council. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, as we gather here today with hearts full of gratitude for the opportunity to serve our beloved community, we thank you, Lord, for the trust that you've placed in us, for the chance to work together to better serve our city and our fellow citizens in our city. We ask you, Lord, please, for divine wisdom and guidance in making decisions. And most importantly, we ask you for unity, Lord, and an open mind and clarity of mind and one spirit of unity so we can make better choices and continue to serve our beloved city and beloved people. We love you, Heavenly Father, and please bless the rest of our time. Amen.
Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please present the agenda and any revisions thereto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no revisions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you very much. To my council, are there any conflict of interest to declare? None? None? Okay. At this time, we'll move on to introduction to public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Victorville City Council. Your city council is interested in your ideas and opinions and furthermore endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with the council's established policies and procedures and Government Code Section 54957.9 and 54957.95. Individuals may speak on agenda items or on issues not posted on the agenda during the public comment section, provided those issues are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Individual speakers may address the council once per public comment period and once per each public hearing item for up to 3 minutes. Additional time may be allotted for appeal hearings in accordance with the city's adopted policy and procedures manual. Those who desire to comment on a public hearing item may wish to reserve their remarks until that particular public hearing has been opened. All testimony is to be directed solely to the council. Although open meeting laws do not permit council members to engage in dialogue with any speaker during the public comment period, please know your comments and questions may be taken into consideration by council members when discussing the particular agenda item. The presiding officer may briefly respond or have staff respond to statements or questions, or may request that the staff report back to the council at a subsequent meeting. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Once comments are invited, the speaker will be called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. The speaker will state the item number that will be addressed or that the subject is a non-agendized matter. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. Our first speaker tonight is Iris Renfro on a non-agendized item.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying hello and good evening. I'm here today because our communities are not safe. There's a threat across our country that has made its way into our communities. ICE. Local outlets, news outlets, are assuring us that ICE isn't here, that we're subject to mass hysteria, that we don't know what's happening in our city. But we know what we're seeing. There's undocumented vehicles that are patrolling our streets. There's been an increase in police activity. We're not blind. We know what's happening. Right now, we live in a community where we have to tell our children that they cannot play outside out of fear that they will be taken off the streets. That unidentified people in military gear with no identification, no warrants, no probable cause will show up and take our people based on the color of their skin. This is not a hyperbole. This is not an exaggeration. This is what our government has promised us. These are the words of Tom Homan, who claimed that ICE somehow has the authority to take people off our streets based on their physical appearance, people that look illegal. This is a racially motivated, government-funded dismantling of democracy. This isn't an issue of left versus right. This is an issue of decency versus villainy. The time to act is not when we see what happened in Los Angeles happen on our streets. It is not when we are being tear gassed and shot with rubber-cased bullets. It is not when we find out that our loco elotero was kidnapped or that somebody in our communities has died in ICE custody. ICE is corrupt. The majority of people being kidnapped and denied due process are US citizens without a criminal record. Veterans are being violently restrained. Households, workplaces, hospitals, and churches are being raided. Children are being separated from their families. People are dying in ICE custody. If the city of Victorville won't take action to protect its people, to stand against ICE, the blood of innocent people will be on the hands of those who are complicit in this. We will not stand for this violent, inhumane organization that is endangering our communities. I ask you all to please take a public stand against ICE. Don't be complicit in corruption. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alfredo Miranda on a non-agendized item.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Alfredo Miranda, and I just wanted to introduce myself as the district representative for Senator Suzanne Martinez Valadares. If there's anything our office can help, feel free to contact me or my colleague Miriam, and we'll be happy to assist you the best way we can. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do they have your information? Contact information? Can you leave that with? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Darla Ann on a non-agendized item.
Hi, my name is Darla. I just wanted to say I'm homeless, and your homeless program is not helping the homeless. I've spoken to Scott about a year and a half ago when I went through the Wellness Center and I graduated and I bought a home. Unfortunately, my home burned down due to somebody else's error on another street. 6 of us lost homes, but I didn't have fire insurance. So I reached out to the Wellness Center. Actually, Red Cross came and they called Wellness Center, and the Wellness Center said, we have plenty of openings. She needs to call. I called every day, twice a day for over a month. Never once got a call back. I finally reached out to you guys, and I spoke to William Lamas and Edward, and I got some help where they said they'd help me with housing. I was approved for housing over 2 months ago. I'm still not in the Wellness Center. I am still homeless. I am still without a home. I am disabled and have a heart condition, and I also have a service dog. I am now in a hotel, thank God, and I'm grateful for that. But it is cockroach infested. It didn't have air conditioning. Every day I go outside, there's no security. This is a hotel that you guys provided, thank goodness, and I'm so grateful. I'm not saying that I'm not grateful, but one, why wasn't I allowed in the Wellness Center? I have no idea. I get no answers. I've been approved for housing for over 2 months. You have somebody that's that is our counselor and supposed to help 3 families. She only has to help 3, and she's done nothing. I've gotten no leads on a home. I do not want to be a statistic. I don't want to go into the Wellness Center, back on the street. Go into the Wellness Center, back on the street. I graduated. I did something good with myself. You can only help yourself, but if somebody gives you a hand to help you, it makes things a little easier. So to be in this hotel and having to provide every single thing, when I go outside of my hotel and there's drugs everywhere, they've keyed my car, they broke into my car, they broke into my hotel room, and I reach out to Edward, who's supposed to take care of this, and it's like talking to the wall. He's a nice man, a kind man, and Gina's supposed to be my social worker, yet she's done nothing. Not one thing. Made nothing but promises, and here I am, over 2 months later, approved for housing. Where's the money going that has been approved for helping the homeless? I'm one right here that truly wants the help and who needs it. I did very good by getting a home. I didn't have fire insurance, and it didn't start in my home, and I can't sue the person where it started because it was an abandoned house. So I'm kind of in a catch-22, and I just need a little help. So if someone could reach out to whoever's supposed to take care of it, because I've reached out to Alex, that's in charge of the city planning office.
Your time is up.
Sorry about that. Thank you for your time.
Ma'am, do we have your contact information?
There are no additional speakers at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will move on to our first business of order of public hearings. Item 1, amendment to the Victorville Municipal Code introducing various updates to Title 16, including but not limited to Land Use Table 7-1, to conditionally permit medical and dental offices within the IPD, Industrial Park District Zone, and a site plan conditional use permit with an environmental exemption to allow for the development of a new medical professional office building on a vacant parcel zoned IPD with a deviation from the Victorville Municipal Code design guidelines to allow drive aisle at the rear of the property without requiring inclusive of a 5-foot wide landscape planter. Mr. Munster, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. On July 11th of this year, the Planning Commission unanimously approved a plan for 8,100 square foot medical and professional office building on Business Center Drive, south of Silica Drive and north of Jasmine. And as a part of that approval, it was dealing with the zoning affecting the site, and the current zoning of that site is IPD, which is Industrial Park District. And as it currently stands, medical and dental uses are not permitted uses in that, or even conditionally permitted uses in that zoning. And so with that, to effectively accommodate that development, staff considered and as a part of the recommendation, is included a recommendation to modify the zoning to the IPD district to include medical and dental uses as uses that can be conditionally allowed. And so with that, because it is a land use matter and affects effectively the general plan, the zone change element of it requires council approval. And so with that, it's important to note that while it was effectively initiated as a part of a project, the zone change, if approved by this council, to allow for medical and dental uses within that IPD zoning, would actually apply not just to this particular project that was approved by the commission, but it also applies citywide to all parcels throughout the city that have that same zoning. And so with that, the author on this item is Alex Hattigi, your city planner, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council open and conduct a public hearing to receive public testimony, close the public hearing, find the code amendment exempt pursuant to Section 15061B3 of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and find the site plan portion of the project categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA Section 15332 entitled Infill Development Projects. Introduce ordinance number 2457 for adoption and first reading by title only to amend Title 16 of the Victorville Municipal Code to conditionally allow medical and dental offices within the IPD zone district Waive further reading in full of proposed ordinance number 2457. Adopt resolution number 25-054, approving the conditional use permit portion of case number PLA in 25-00002, subject to the attached conditions of approval. And adopt resolution number 25-055, approving the site plan portion of case number PLA in 25-00002, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Jones?
Just one question. As if the council goes forward, if the council goes forward with this, is the resolution then going to benefit the other areas that are going to be incorporated into the change?
As it relates to the zoning?
Yeah.
Yes, and are you speaking also as it relates to the drive aisle landscape deviation?
Yes.
The answer, yeah, let me have Alex Haddocky speak to that point, because I believe the answer is no.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Councilmember Jones, the answer to that is no. The deviation would only be applicable to this specific development proposed.
Great. That's what I thought. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving?
Yes, I just want to clarify something that Mr. Metzler stated, or make sure I understood it. So with this amendment, it would allow for medical and dental facilities in IPD zones throughout the entire city. Is that correct? Did you say that? Did I hear it correctly?
As they would be included as conditional uses within that zoning district.
Throughout the city?
Throughout the city, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I didn't know that one. So it would be citywide, that change. In any zoned area, equivalent zoning, it would.
So 50 plus 25.
50 plus 20.
I didn't say that.
We've got an open mic on Zoom. Mr. Matthews or Mr. Robinson, maybe mute yourselves. Sorry. Mr. Haddocky, can you speak to the IPD and the application of those two types of uses as it relates to this site and then citywide?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Metzler. Councilmember Harriman, yes. So the proposal would add as a conditional use within all the IPD zone districts throughout the city an allowance for medical and dental offices. Our code currently allows administrative and professional offices as a conditional use within that district. They're very similar in nature and how they operate, and the thought process at the staff level and as presented to the Planning Commission would be that medical offices would serve as a very good accessory use to industrial uses, perhaps to serve pre-employment physicals, workplace injuries, so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you, and I agree.
Mr. Metzler, if I may ask Mr. Haddocky a question. Alex, is there a difference between a medical office and like an urgent care? I know there is a difference, but are they both considered medical offices, or no, they're different?
Yes, Madam Mayor, they're considered under the term medical office.
Under the term medical office, okay. So they could open up an urgent care more this way now?
Correct. In the IPD zone, they would be subject to an allowance for a discretionary conditional use permit. Would be able to analyze each site individually to determine the appropriateness, sufficient parking, so on and so forth.
And that's at the planning department or the planning commission?
If the development were existing, our municipal code allows that to happen at the staff level through the zoning administrator level approval. In conjunction with new development, that would be presented to the planning commission.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have no other questions. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
At this time, I'll now close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of ordinance number 2457?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville approving amendment case number PLAN 25-00002, an amendment to the Victorville Municipal Code with an environmental exemption to conditionally allow for medical and dental offices citywide within the Industrial Park District, IPD, Land Use Zone District.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite a motion for this item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the council adopt staff's recommendation as it relates to points 3 through 7 as presented on the agenda, with points 1 and 2 already having been disposed.
Second.
But first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Irving. Councilmember Jones, any comments on the pending motion?
I have none. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Irving?
No comments, thank you.
Councilmember Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We've now taken action to approve points 3 through 7 of staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 2, adoption of resolution number 25-049, annual assessments for unpaid rubbish collection, sewer use fees, storm drain fees, hazardous waste fees, and/or Assembly Bill 939 recycling fees. Mr. Metzger, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Once a year, we go through this process where effectively we reconcile amounts owed for, in this case, the sewer use fees, storm drain fees, hazardous waste fees, unpaid rubbish fees, and effectively identify all those that have delinquencies greater than 60 days worth of delinquent accounts. We do provide, a substantial amount of notice, including one final notice to the property owners. It's actually published also in the newspaper, speaking to this public hearing, providing those that are in that category of having delinquent bills for 60 days or more, up until July 22nd to be able to actually cure those bills. Otherwise, we do rely on the county's process to be able to lien the properties for the amounts due, and effectively we will collect at some point in time in the future with those liens when there's some kind of change to the property requiring payment of those liens. And so with that, this is pretty typical for us around this time of year, because I believe all of the information has to get into the county by the first week in August. And so with that, the author on this item is your finance director, Ms. Carmen Kuhn, and she's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council open and conduct the public hearing and receive testimony for the adoption of the proposed resolution number 25-049, close the public hearing, adopt resolution number 25-049 entitled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville, California, making determination and confirming assessments and proceedings for unpaid rubbish collection, sewer use fees, storm drain fees, hazardous waste fees, and/or Assembly Bill 939 recycling fees, and authorize the Director of Finance to execute the agreement for collection of special taxes, fees, and assessments with the county."
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Irving?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Councilmember Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
Sure, just for those who may not know, Mr. Metzler, this is in effect a ministerial item and that this comes before the council yearly.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
And Mr. Metzler, I have a question in regards to this one and the water. Various letters went out to either the home occupant and/or the homeowner, correct?
Yes, and if I can, because I think it's important to know that we don't just get to this place, once a year and it, is a surprise to the owner. There's, of course, bills that go out every month to the owners as well, and notices to both the occupant and the owner. In the case, the two are different. So it's not something that we just spring on these folks, the owners or the occupants, around this time of year. There's certainly notices throughout the duration of the year that includes some unkind notices that sound to be threatening in the sense that we can ultimately shut off water or the utilities. With that, that provides us opportunity in many cases to actually work with the property owner, and we actually work with a lot of either property owners or occupants to have payment plans to do everything possible to keep the delinquency amounts from getting out of control.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kut, thank you and your staff also. At this time, I will open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
At this time, I'll now close the public hearing. Now invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff recommendation as presented on the agenda as to items 3 and 4.
Second.
I leave a first by Councilmember Godin, second by Councilmember Irving. Councilmember Godin, comments on the pending motion?
None, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Irving?
No comments, thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
And thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Godin.
Yes.
Councilmember Irving.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve points 3 and 4 of staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 3, adoption of resolution number VWD 25-010- annual assessment of unpaid water fees. Mr. Menser, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I think the only thing really different in this item is, as compared to the item that you just acted on in number 2, is that first, you're acting in the capacity of the Water District Board of Directors. And then secondly, this is dealing specifically with unpaid water fees. And so over the same duration of the time, same noticing process as well to the residents and owners. So only really 2 differences as compared to the previous item. So with that, both myself and Ms. Kuhn will continue to remain available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable Victorville Water District Board of Directors open and conduct the public hearing and receive testimony for the adoption of the proposed resolution number VWD 25-010, close the public hearing, adopt resolution number VWD 25-010 entitled a resolution of the Victorville Water District, City of Victorville, adding delinquent non-paid charges to the annual taxes levied upon the property for which the charges are delinquent and unpaid, and authorize the Director of Finance to execute the agreement for the collection of special taxes, fees, and assessments with the county.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council member. Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
None.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes, I am curious. When we establish a payment plan for a homeowner or someone, how long do we give them to make their account whole or to bring their account up to date, generally speaking? Is it like 12 months or generally speaking?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It really depends up to the customer. What we do is we work with the customer, and there's a lot of factors we take into consideration. One, how high is that bill, how delinquent they are. Part of the payment plan requires that they select a payment plan that works for them. So it could be 3 months, 6 months. We do go up to 12 months, absolutely we do. And in the case of commercial accounts, we might extend that. But part of the plan is they have to keep current with the agreed upon plan plus their current bill going forward.
Just curious about that. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
And I have none. This time I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
And I'll now close the public hearing and invite a motion for this item.
Madam Mayor, I move that the Victorville Water District Board of Directors take action in accordance with the recommendations set forth on the agenda as to points 3 and 4, with points 1 and 2 already having been disposed.
Second.
Oh, let's give it to you.
I have a first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Godin.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones, any comments on the pending motion?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
None, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving?
No comments, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin.
Yes.
Councilmember Irving.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve points 3 and 4 of staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. We'll now move on to the consent calendar, items 4 through 17. The only thing I would like to do is make two comments on it. To the engineering staff, the Bear Valley Road medium improvements, great job. I'm looking, there we go. Great job. And also to the economic, you guys received an award. I really wish you would have done it here, to our economic development and our PIO office. They received an award, a merit award for their social biz, VV biz in Victorville. Great job to you and your staff. So great job, Tony, to you and your staff. That's all the comments I have. I'll invite a motion for this, items 4 through 17.
Madam Mayor?
Move that we adopt staff's recommendation for the council and the council acting on its various boards of directors as to the recommendations set forth on the agenda items 4 through 17.
Second.
I have a first by Councilwoman Jones, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godam,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action on items 4 through 17 in accordance with the recommendations set forth on the agenda. Item 18, written communication. 17, Council of Governments presentation. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. As you know, the city of Victorville is a member of SBCOG, which is the San Bernardino Council of Governments, where the role of the COG is to generally take on matters of regional interest to all members of the COG. And this item is on the agenda really at the request of the council, resulting from an action last year where the council agreed to continue on as a member of the COG. For 2 years, however, did ask that presentations be made annually by SBCOG staff so that the council could be more informed of the benefits provided by the COG to the city. And so today you have a couple of members from SBCOG here in attendance. First, we have the new executive director, Carrie Schindler, here in the audience. But we also have Ms. Monique Ariano, who is going to be leading the presentation for you tonight.
Good evening. I am Monique Ariano, the Director of the Council of Governments for SBCTA SBCOG. Thank you for inviting me to update your City Council on the status and look ahead of the Council of Governments since the last time I've been here. This is an update on the expansion really of the function of the Council of Governments as directed by our Board of Directors and approved by all of our member agencies last year. So as you might recall, last year I was here with the recently retired Ray, who was our executive director, and we provided a presentation on the direction of the board to increase both the function and the cost of San Bernardino Council of Governments. At that council meeting, the council approved the adoption of the Joint Powers Authority Amendment number 4, which provided the platform that we're able to actually build a program from, and that is what I'm presenting to you today. So one of the questions that continuously arises, which many folks are unaware of, is the relationship between SBCTA and SBCOG. So I just wanted to run through this really quickly with you. Most are aware of the CTA function. We build the roads, we build a lot of the interchange program, freeway programs that get constructed in this county. And its responsibility for Measure I and the transportation projects, but we really think it's important to understand the agency's history, particularly as it relates to the board direction to recently expand the COG. So in 1973, we were actually established as SAMBAG, the Council of Governments. And then in 1976, County Transportation Commission. And then in 1986, we added on freeway service emergencies. And then in 89, we became the Transportation Authority. And then in 1990, we added congestion management onto our list because our plate wasn't full enough. And then in 2017, it became clear that we needed to break apart our agencies. So we became 2 legal entities. The administration, however, the function is the same. So we have SBCTA, which handles all of those county transportation pieces. And then we have the Council of Governments, which is everything that I'm going to talk to you about today. So as you may recall, our budget increased over the last 2 years. And the work plan was approved by our board of directors back in November of 2024. Within the work plan, we identified the key functions for the cost increase of all of our member agencies and projects and programs that are specific to initiation over the next 5 years. So these are the general big picture functions that the board identified for our Council of Governments. It includes strategic planning, which is really collaboration and partnership among all of our member agencies throughout the county. Regional outreach and advocacy. We do grant writing on behalf of our member agencies as well as regional projects. Project development, if there are projects that are of interest in the member agencies that we would like to position for competitiveness for funds, we would like to help you develop your projects. We do city-county conference planning, and then we also act as a liaison to outside stakeholders, organizations, and agencies, both local, state, and federal. So the budget cost went from $658,000 up to $1.5 million, and that increase took place over 2 years. That full increase began this fiscal year starting July 1st. We increased our staff from 1.3 to 3 full-time staff, and then we have consultant contracts that are currently out to bid for implementation of the program. The cost share, through the process of establishing our work plan and increasing the budget, the city manager group, which we worked with very closely, was quite adamant that the method with which we used to calculate the cost to the member agencies was outdated. And so we needed to adjust that so that it reflected the reality of actual revenues received from the cities and the county. And then we readjusted with a formula for taking that component into consideration and where the populations are throughout the county. So what we came up with is this chart, and essentially 5 agencies cover 51% of the cost of the 1.5 million, and then the rest of the county, 20 jurisdictions, covers that 49%, and Victorville is right there at 67,000. Our staff increases started back in September. We hired on a Council of Governments manager who's going to be responsible for implementation of our work plan. Grant administrator, which straddles both the CTA and COG functions, so they work in both areas, and the analyst too, also the same, they straddle both areas. Our work plan was approved back in November of 2024, and we developed a lot of project options for our city managers and our board of directors to consider. We looked at ad hoc discussions that were ongoing for about 2 years with our board. We researched our sister agencies, so we looked at what WRCOG, CVAG, and San Gabriel Valley provide to their member agencies. We looked at our own initiatives. We had done a couple of studies. We did a Smart County Master Plan. We completed a small business study where we identified a few initiatives that we wanted to add to that list of options for them. And then we also had discussions with our city managers TAC. So the prioritization, we essentially developed a gigantic list of projects. We took that to our city managers. We met with them sub-regionally. So we went to the West Valley, we went to the East Valley, we went to the Morongo Basin, we came up here to the High Desert, and we had conversations with the city managers and the staff from the county supervisor's office to understand what is it that you are in need of that we can add to this list? How do you want to prioritize it? What makes the most sense to you? And from that, we took that back to our board ad hoc, and they provided the recommendations that we're going to go to the board, and that's how we move forward with the program. And so the program and projects that we identified are on this slide. 21 of the 25 member agencies identified a homeless strategic plan. So this has become the top priority for our region. And we are looking at street vendor toolkits. We've actually begun the implementation process for that. We have identified 3 small business initiatives that are regional in nature. And I can speak to those if you have questions on them. I'm going to kind of fly through it because we have a lot of information. We are looking at implementing a speaker series, so bringing together sectors, government officials, non-government officials, those that work in these areas that can provide us information as we move forward with some of these projects. We identified 2 projects on our Smart County Master Plan, our CAD to CAD program, and Smart Intersections and Corridors. We work collaboratively with our partners in Western Riverside Council and the Coachella Valley for our IREN program, which is our energy program, provides a lot of benefits for our member agencies. We are working on implementing a housing trust currently. We have several REAP 2.0 programs that work for our member agencies, which I'll go through. We do outreach and regional advocacy again in that grant writing. So for REAP, we were granted quite a bit of money, about $18 million that came to our region from SCAG. I have executed all of our MOUs for the programs currently. We are implementing the HIP program, which is essentially the implementation of the Surplus Land Acts that all of our member agencies are dealing with. And we are also implementing technical assistance for our member agencies through our SRP program so that the agencies can actually work to implement the housing elements as required by HCD. Again, we're working on the Housing Trust, and we are working on a few other programs under SBCTA, which include our VMT Mitigation Bank and a Complete Streets program. Just to give you a little bit on the Housing Trust, that is what we're considering a subscription service. So not all of our member agencies are interested in participating in this. So this is a separate project that is paid for separately by those agencies that would like to participate. And the goal of this program is to bring to additional money to this region to build affordable housing. And so Victorville's dollar value with this, through specifically the implementation of the SRP, they are receiving $87,000 in work in-kind services for the implementation of that SRP program here. IREN is again, that Inland Regional Energy Program, and it is that partnership with WRCOG and CVAG. We have several components here. I'm gonna be very brief, but IREN is partnering with both Riverside and San Bernardino County Workforce Development Divisions to facilitate training and education for nearly 200 people over the course of the agreement, which is about 5 years. The IREN Energy Fellowship Program is currently accepting applications. We place applicants in our member agencies at no cost to the agency, so they can learn on-the-job training, and we build capacity in our member agencies for projects that have a link to energy savings. We do building and energy code trainings that provide information to the member agencies on how to update your development codes if you're looking to update them to be more energy efficient. And then we are also sponsoring, IREN is sponsoring your state of events. So if you're interested in having them sponsored, they are willing to provide some funds for that. The potential savings for Victorville here is about $746,000. We did an evaluation of upgrades that you are looking at doing to your City Hall building and I believe the Arts building. And we identified $746,000 that we can potentially reimburse the city if you meet the energy, I think upgrade of 10%. If you meet those energy reductions after the construction, we can reimburse you $746,000 if you're interested in that. So grant administration, we are starting from scratch here on the COG side. We have a pretty good program on our transportation side, but currently what we've done is launched a bi-monthly distribution of grant opportunity tables to all of our local agencies. And the goal there is to enhance the visibility and potential fund sources that can come to the member agencies. We work with our members to actually prep for the grant. So if you have a project, again, that you'd like to receive funding for, we can help you get it to a competitive position, and we can actually provide resources to help you write your grant. So these are the immediate projects on that 5-year work plan. I'm just gonna run through a really quick status of each one of them. But the Homeless Strategic Plan, we just took the RFP to the board for getting a consultant on board. It's gonna be a big project. We are looking at really establishing the links and the collaboration potential between our member agencies, especially through the county, who already invests a lot of money in this area. How can we help our member agencies understand what's available, identify a return on investment, and identify the populations within your jurisdiction and what the needs are, so that if it's building a navigation center, building a shelter, expanding the use of the COAST team, the HOPE team, we're looking at identifying strategies for the member agencies for implementation through the Homeless Strategic Plan. Smart County Master Plan was complete. We identified a few projects on that, and we are now in the implementation process of CAD to CAD as well as smart corridors. We are working with our member agencies on street vendor toolkits. This was a big push, particularly in the Valley. There was a desire to approach this from a regional perspective because the cities identified that if one city enforces in a particular way, vendors pick up and they just move to the next city. So it became an ongoing issue across the region. So they looked at how we can approach it in a more unified fashion. We have the 3 small business initiatives that were also identified. These are going to be a part of the RFP that we're taking to the board for approval of a consultant contract at the end of the fall. So we should be able to start moving on this by the Q2. And then the engagement framework. This is a project that we identify a strategy for how we engage our non-governmental organizations, our nonprofits, for particular benefit to our small business initiatives as well as our housing and homeless. A lot of these folks already work and build capacity in these sectors, so we're looking at a strategy for how we engage them on a regular basis. So they're a part of our process as we move these things forward. And then smart corridors, Bear Valley Road was identified. Our board of directors just approved advancement of Measure I funds so that we can actually start the planning process for how we collaborate with Caltrans, Victorville, Apple Valley, and Hesperia to not just do signal sync coordination, but also things like additional amenities. You're looking at Wi-Fi options, you're looking at different traffic control measures. If there's options that the cities are interested in, we can certainly plan for those through the PNED process, which will be kicking off in a few weeks. So closing out, I want to emphasize two benefits that all of our members achieve as a part of membership through SBCOG. The first is the monetary value. For example, Victorville's member agency dues are $67,590 a year. That's about $338,000 over 5 years. The cost of the SBCOG work plan for the 5 years is about $8.5 million. And that's just the dollars in versus the dollars out. It doesn't include the REAP value of $87,000 that is being provided to the agency, nor the IREM potential reimbursement. And what I would argue is as equally important and of value to member agencies is the benefit of working together as a region to chart its own course, identify its own needs, and build partnerships off of already existing programs and resources in the region. The ability of a member agency to leverage the costs and benefits from programs that already exist is a huge benefit to our taxpayers. And here I would use the example of the investments made by the county into the infrastructure that they've established for homeless services. This city has done a lot, it's invested a lot. So how do we help you make the connection between what you already have and leverage that with what is available that we can help you connect dots to? And with that, I am happy to take any questions. And I don't want to put Carrie on the spot, but I will. She can answer questions too.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
Any action is at the discretion of your honorable city council.
Madam Clerk, since this isn't a, we're not voting on anything on this item, correct?
I would assume that you would have a discussion, and if there's something that the council would want to push forward, you can take whatever action you would choose, but
So I'm going to ask that the council, it's limited to 2-minute questions. Is that what it is? Is that what our normal question and answer session?
it's 2 minutes.
All right. We'll now do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Jones?
Sure, but before I begin, Madam Mayor, I just want to clarify, because I think you asked a great question. This item has come forward as a potential action item, but my understanding was that when this came back annually, it was, I mean, it's certainly at this point that it was to be kind of an update information piece, and so I'm going to act on that. Is that a correct understanding, Madam Mayor?
I don't understand what the action we're voting on then. That's what I'm asking.
There's no, that's the question.
So
That's why I'm
that's why
questioning
I'm
why it
saying.
would be, yeah.
So
So
I'm
I would-
allowing council 2 minutes to ask questions of something we're not going to vote on.
Okay. So, Ms. Ariano, thank you very much for your great presentation. Ms. Schindler, thank you so much, and congratulations on your new post. I know that you'll do a great job. Can you, in a nutshell, describe to us really, so that we and the members of our community can understand what really is the purpose of SBCOG?
So the goal, as I've understood it from the board of directors' direction, it's really essentially to identify the opportunities where our member agencies, so there's 24 cities that belong to our board of directors, as well as the 5 county supervisor districts. It's a forum that allows for the discussion and action on items, not just on transportation, but outside of that, looking at this from a 360-degree level. If we're looking at things like housing, these issues that all of our member agencies are dealing with, or a good majority of them are dealing with, and we provide an opportunity for them not to have to deal with it by themselves. They can either take a unified front, they can learn from each other, but essentially that's the goal, the collaboration of our member agencies for a stronger voice in this region.
So I think that's a really good point. So you mentioned not to have to deal with things by ourselves. So that assumes a regional approach to what we're doing, and certainly on some maybe novel and not so novel issues. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Okay. So in looking at the potential savings on IREN of $746,000, that alone, so what period of time might that cover? Because our dues are $67,590 annually.
Oh, Well, once the improvements are made by the city, if they determine that they want to proceed with this program, once the improvements are made, because we've already done the evaluation, I believe there's a 6-month evaluation following the improvement construction, and then another 6 months. And if you reach that 10% energy savings, that's when those dollars would be available for the city. It's a reimbursement. We just write you a check.
Okay, and just a general question, if I could, because I think that you presented to us before, and I think I hope that you walked away from that meeting knowing that Victorville is serious about wanting some bang for its buck. And I don't think that that's any different than any other city that's paying dues, right?
Absolutely.
The rationale typically on SBCTA is that we are stronger in numbers and being able to get more done. And yet, every agency has to advocate for itself, and we want a return on our investment. So tell me, what is your analysis on the return on investment for Victorville?
Well, the return on the investment is, well, twofold. Like I kind of mentioned at the end, it's the monetary investment you're making, which is $67,000 a year. The program itself is $8.5 million. If you participate in all of the programming and process that we have, your voice is a part of whatever it is that we're implementing. For example, the housing, not the housing trust, the homeless strategic plan. If you are a part of those discussions, we definitely would include strategies to address what the needs are of Victorville specifically, High Desert generally. So having that return is not necessarily monetary, but it is of great value when you're trying to establish partnerships, when you're working to build off of the investments that you've already made as a city.
Okay. So thinking about the homeless situation, I think I'm very proud of Victorville and its stance, and I think what we've done is rather novel in the state. We've done a lot, and so I think that actually
Your time is up.
we're doing it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Godin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I did have a question for you in regards to the grants. I understand that you're assisting cities find different grants that are out there, and you're assisting them apply and get them. Does SBCOG itself apply for grants and receive grant funding? And if so, is that money dispersed to the cities? And do you have any examples of that?
So this is a new function for SBCOG. In the past, we have not. We do hire a consultant firm, and we provide them as a resource to our member agencies. So we don't necessarily compete generally with our member agencies with any of this. If there are opportunities for the member agencies to work together, we would definitely write that grant. But as far as SBCOG, we don't implement programs. We provide our services for the benefit of our member agencies. So we're not typically in a position of competing with them.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Councilwoman Irby?
Yes, first of all, I want to say it's good to see you, and thank you so much for your presentation. During your presentation, you mentioned the IREN program. You spoke about potential savings for the city. Just work with me. I just want to recap what I think I heard. You came and you did an analysis in the city, and you identified, not you, but your agency identified the, what was it, the arts building and city hall?
Yes.
And made recommendations.
So I believe our program manager worked with a public works staff member in the city, and we went through an evaluation process because they were interested in the cost savings potential as well.
Right.
So we went through an evaluation where we I'm not technical on the IREN part, but I can give you an overview of what we did. So essentially what they did was they talked with Public Works, they followed what they were going to do as far as the scope of work, what the improvements were going to be. And based on those improvements, our IREN team identified the potential energy savings of those improvements, and we identified that monetary value of $746,000 as savings if you meet that 10% energy reduction.
So collaboratively, you made the recommendations with our input. Is that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And these recommendations are tethered to the potential savings.
Yes. All we're waiting on is a green light from Victorville to move forward.
I hear you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I also, could you explain that a little better for me so that those projects, if we initiate a savings of 10% in energy, does that mean us installing solar and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know what the scope of work was for the improvements. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can certainly get back to you. But yes, every type of improvement, so like upgrading your windows and installing insulation, all of these things have a potential energy savings. And those improvements were identified and measured out for the monetary value. Does that make sense?
I'm not the brightest guy in the world, so. So that's not the 700, I'll just say $750,000 doesn't come to us.
Yes.
That's what we will save?
No, so if you meet the target that we identify in the scope based on what the improvements are gonna be, if you meet that 10% reduction, we would write Victorville a check for $746,000 for meeting that reduction.
Okay, well, that's good news. 10% should be easy to,
Yeah, and that's the minimum. So I believe that it was identified that you were probably gonna go over that if the improvements were made.
okay. And then, so, Bear Valley Road is an issue with all the cities because they all have a piece of it. And in my opinion, it's been sad that we're not able to expand it in the way that a lot of cities can down in the valley. We just can't widen it because of all the development alongside of it. And, so any of that improving that goes on Bear Valley Road would be pretty much nothing as in infrastructure to the street.
You're talking capacity enhancing? Yeah,
yes.
no, we wouldn't be doing that. But what we would be doing is actually, from what I understand from the project manager, is the big issue is Caltrans right-of-way ramps and how they flow into the cities. So what we would be looking at is identifying a method by which we can hopefully enhance motion, at least through the intersections, as well as the actual technological and communication infrastructure that we would be implementing. But yeah, they would be working with Caltrans very closely to kind of figure out how they can improve that.
Okay, there's some areas in our city that don't have curb and gutter. Would that be something that would fall into that?
I can't say for sure. I imagine that anything is on the table if there's money being brought forth. So I wouldn't say no, but it would definitely be a part of the discussions for the planning and design, which would be kicking off in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, I think she wants to tell me something.
That question. So not part of the smart corridor would not be curb, gutter, sidewalk. It wouldn't be part of the smart corridor. There's other funding that comes through Measure I to the city, and you guys have numerous priorities. It's up to you guys how you want to prioritize it. I'm not asserting you should prioritize that, but there's the local pass-through for Measure I, which is, I think, 67% up here, would be the pot of funding that could go towards that, or the major local highway projects, which are prioritized on a sub-area basis.
Okay.
But not smart corridors. I don't want you to think that through the smart corridors, you would be getting curb, gutter, and sidewalk.
Okay, so the off-ramps on the freeway would fall into that? I mean, the off-ramps onto Bear Valley Road from the freeway?
That's one of the things I'm most excited about this project is at the onset, it seems like we've made progress with Caltrans to seriously consider the improvements and the coordination that's needed at the interface of Bear Valley and their right-of-way and the signals that they control.
Okay, well, there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more to do. There's a lot of people get off the freeway right there that are northbound and as well as southbound in the morning. But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Hold on. There we go. The grant writing you help us with, you not only help us, but you help every city for the same dollar, correct?
We provide that as a resource for every city.
But everybody's fighting for the same dollars, not just Victorville.
It's
The cities around us, who all belong to the COG.
I think it depends on what project you would be requesting funding for.
And you say that Ontario, San Bernardino, Fontana, and Rancho Cucamonga pay 51%. I'd like to know what their tax base is to pay 51% though, because ours is based on our population, correct? Not based on our square miles.
So are you talking about the formula for the cost allocation? The formula for the cost allocation is 50% population and 50% actual tax revenues sales and property tax received by the agencies.
For Ranch Cucamonga, the gardens,
For
the,
all,
So
Um,
there's a series of cost allocations that have been built up since the formation of the COG. And this last increase is based on 50% population and 50% base tax rate for every member of the COG.
okay. I notice here under your prioritized projects and programs, how come the city's CREA program isn't on here?
the cities, I'm sorry,
CREA program?
I'm not familiar with it.
And then, going to your grant administrative, not one project is even in the high desert, Highland, Redlands, Baker, and then San Bernardino. If it was to us, we should have at least had one grant project.
So, yeah, let me address that.
That's
That
a
was
concern.
sampling that was put up there. I would say US 395 is a project that we brought a bunch of grant money forward with in partnership with the state. That was a sampling of since COG has been ramping up. It's not an exhaustive list, but, and as Monique mentioned during her presentation, that has been focused on the CTA on the transportation side, and we are now expanding the function to provide that service to cities on the COG side for more COG centralized items, not just transportation projects.
So when you say smart corridors on Bear Valley Road from Fish Hatchery all the way to Armagosa belong to the city of Victorville, then on the other side of the freeway on Mariposa and down to Dunia. The on and off ramps, the Caltrans control, they don't have to play nice with us. They've never have played nice with us for 34 years. They control the way that people get off the freeway with zero concern on the way we try to move our people through. So, go ahead.
I totally agree with you. I mean, it has been a real challenge to work with them. On this project, we have seen more movement from them to work with us on addressing those issues. I'm not promising anything because we can't control Caltrans, but I'm saying it's the first time I have actually seen, I've seen the responses from them, and they seem agreeable to working with us. And we're going to push that as hard as we can because we do understand how much of an impact it has.
And then your street vendor toolkit, we have a different project than all the other cities around us on street vending. Will they take what we're doing, or no, they're gonna try to make a plan for all of us? It won't work for all of us.
No. So anything that we do as far as establishing a street vendor toolkit is just that. It's a menu of options for our member agencies to pick and choose what makes sense to them. So we're looking at things like enforcement, we're looking at development code updates, we're looking at all these different issues that you're all dealing with, including public health. We're actually having quite a few conversations with the county on this. So in having those conversations with the cities and the county, law enforcement, we are getting an understanding of what we can provide to our member agencies that you may find useful, you may not find useful, but we're learning from all of you as we provide this menu of options. And again, it's one of those things where you can pick and choose. We don't implement, cities are going to implement this however they want to implement.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Madam Clerk, it tells me I'm inviting a motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Of course, if you guys wish to make a motion for anything relative to this item itself, you're welcome to do so, or you could just receive and file the report.
Okay.
So, Madam Mayor, I would object in the sense that I'm still not a proper understanding as to why this was agendized. I'm not sure as to why, I would object because I'm not sure as to why this item was agendized as a possible action item. When the council took action on this some months ago, it was to just merely receive an update annually. So I don't think it's appropriate at this time to do more than what the council originally requested. Thank you.
Then if there's no motion, there's no motion. I'll invite a motion for this item. Hearing no motions, we'll move on to the next item. Item 19, Approval of utility agreement number 395-COV08, 395-COV12, -395-COV16, and 395-COV24 with the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority for Highway 395 widening project Phase 2. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. As you may already know, the SBCTA is the lead agency on Phase 2 of the US 395 widening project, expanding with a raised median from 395, along 395 from Palmdale Road to US I-15. And certainly, as they're in the phase of moving closer towards construction, there's been a need to perfect the right-of-way, and certainly as a part of that process, it was identified that in the ultimate alignment of the project there in Victorville, at least, there were four water lines affected by the footprint of the 395 widening. And effectively, those water lines have to be relocated. And so this item is dealing with the ultimate relocation of those utilities that are in conflict with the 395 alignment to where SBCTA will take on the responsibility of designing the scope of work or designing the relocation of those water lines, developing the scope of work, and then effectively reimbursing us after we construct those designed improvements. And so effectively this will get us to that point where we will realign those water utilities consistent with our standards. And then, of course, that would enable the project to move forward. And so with that, this item has been authored by your city engineer, Mr. Freddie Bonilla, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable Board of Directors approve utility agreement numbers 395-COV08, 395-COV12, 395-COV16, and 395-COV24 with the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority for the Highway 395 widening project Phase 2. Authorize the General Manager and Board Attorney to make non-substantive changes and clarifications to the utility agreements, and authorize the General Manager to execute the utility agreements on the Victorville Water District's behalf.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Godin.
I have none, thank you.
Councilmember Irving.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Jones.
I have no questions.
Mayor Protem Harriman.
Yeah, so this item is just to approve.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
Item is to approve, write up an agreement with the SBTCA that they're going to be paying for it?
Actually, the agreements are written up. In fact, there are 4 agreements that with the action of the council tonight approving this item, you'd be approving 4 agreements, 1 agreement for each of the respective water line utilities that are in conflict with the Highway 395 expansion.
Okay, so does that mean there's more than one water company? More than, it's just four areas?
No, they're just 4 different lines, all under the Victorville Water District's authority.
Okay.
In fact, just being a little bit more specific, one is an 8-inch line, one's a 12-inch line, one's a 16-inch line, and one's a 24-inch line. There's also related improvements to that, but effectively there's 4 different lines, also of different material.
Okay, and then when we take on that work, the city count, we get to approve it, and it's gonna go, all that's gonna come through us?
Yeah, so effectively what's taken place right now is there's close coordination with our city engineer along with their design team to make sure what they're designing is actually consistent with the specs for the water district or the standards for the water district. And so between their design team and our city engineer, along with the water district staff, we'll come to terms on an acceptable scope. And once that scope is in place, then the project will be bid. And Freddie, correct me if I'm wrong, will effectively take the lead in the bidding process and the award of contract, and then ultimately the management of the construction project?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Messer. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. That is correct. So the agreements basically establish that SBCTA will be reimbursing the city for the construction cost. They have already contracted a designer, and we are expecting a 30% submittal, probably as soon as next month, so that we can ideally advertise the project later this fall and start the relocation process in advance of their widening efforts.
Do we get to engineer this and put it together how we want to do it, or because they're going to pay us back, do they have a say in how you're going to do it?
We've been working with their lead designer to minimize the amount of relocations, but at the same time, we will not accept anything that doesn't meet our city standards. And so they may be designing the project on the city's behalf, but my office will not be approving any plans until all of our standards and specifications have been met.
Okay, thanks. You go, Freddie.
And-
All right, that's all I have.
And then so just finally to circle back on that, to be clear, you will see something come back related to this in terms of the award of contract when the bidding process is complete and there is actual construction contracts to actually award. So you'll see something related to this one more time at least.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Metzler, if I may, would Mr. Bonilla ask a question? Mr. Bonilla, the 8-inch, 12-inch, 16 and 24-inch lines, they feed our residents out there of water. What is our downtime going to be of moving them over or moving them back? Are we going to, the minimal as we can?
It will be minimal. Our current scope would be to construct a new pipeline outside of the pavement limits. And then once that is in operation, just do the points of connection so we can abandon the ones that are going to be left in the pavement within the project scope.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. At this time, I'll invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff recommendation as to points 1 and 3 as presented, 1 through 3 as presented on the agenda.
Second.
We have a first by Councilmember Godin, a second by Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Godin, any comments on the pending motion?
I just want to commend the staff for their efficiency and their attention to detail on this item.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I certainly echo that sentiment and add to it the tremendous amount of work that SBCTA has put into this project. Certainly SBCTA, its General Policy Committee, and the Mountain Desert Division of the SBCTA. There was some question at one point as to whether any of this would go through because of some air quality management issues. And so I'm thankful that we met all of that criteria and we're not going to have to deal with that. So this is going to go forward. I know that, gosh, not long after I moved here, that 395 was improved. And so now I was asking, well, why wasn't all of this done at that time? And who knows why, but I'm just glad that we're widening this. It's long overdue to make that entire area much safer and certainly more convenient for those who travel up and down the pass every day. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Irving?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I would just like to say I have all the confidence in the world with Freddie. I'm looking forward to this. I really am. Thank you.
To you and your staff, Mr. Padilla, the city of Victorville, thank you very much for what they've done out there and everything, getting all this ready. Everything on our side is good to go. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 20, Mesa Ridge Assistant Payment Year 12 Mall of Victor Valley Development Agreement. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Back in July of 2012, the city entered into a development agreement with the owners of the Mall of Victor Valley, was then Macerich and still is Macerich. That development agreement was entered into in large part to facilitate a redevelopment of that mall. And at the time, the mall was experiencing decline in terms of the patronage and of course, the tenancies that they had in that facility. And effectively, there was a desire by both parties to put together an agreement that effectively pumps some life back into the mall, and directly resultant from that development agreement, the council saw the attraction of Macy's retail, and then of course Dick's facilitated also the relocation of the J.C. Penney retail store to what was then a vacant Mervyn's box. And so with that, it certainly achieved the goal of redirecting some of the trajectory in which the total sales of that mall were generating, which our concern then, of course, was to avoid an absolute shuttering of the mall due to the lack of anchors in that facility. And so it's certainly been productive in that sense that it's kept the mall alive. And so with that, as a part of the development agreement, one of the fundamental agreements on the money side of that transaction was that we entered into a sales tax sharing relationship with the owner, effectively agreeing to share an amount of sales tax collected above a threshold of $1 million a year. And so with that, we've been performing on that agreement. We're now in payment year 12, where over the period of time, we have shared and provided $3.6 million in the aggregate. Procedurally, we do this on an annual basis, and we do it around this time every year. And for example, this payment that we're bringing forward before you is effectively the result of the reconciliation of all tax collections for the calendar year 2024. And so with that, it is a fairly routine item, does require a little bit of work to actually analyze all of the sales, gross sales generated from the mall and the retailers within the mall. But that work is complete, and resultant from that is the item before you, which actually recommends making a payment that is due pursuant to that development agreement. And so with that, the item is authored by your finance director, Ms. Carmen Kuhn, and she's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council authorize the assistance payment as provided for in the development agreement with Macerich Victor Valley LLC in the amount of $308,842 for calendar year 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Irving?
I don't have any.
Councilmember Godin?
I have none.
Councilmember Jones?
None, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
And I have none. At this time, I'll invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
Second. We have a first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Councilmember Jones, comments on the pending motion?
I have none.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
Councilmember Irving?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Godin?
None, thank you.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 21, approval and execution of 2 consultant professional service provider agreements with Nino and More groundwater remediation services related to the former New Way dry cleaners. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item involves property that is currently owned by the by Chaz, which is the housing asset successor. which is a successor to the former redevelopment agency. And this involves property that was originally acquired by or funded by the former redevelopment agency back in 2007. And it was funded back then really to fulfill some of its intent as an agency, which was to conduct land assemblage in Old Town to ultimately try to pursue redevelopment within that area. Unfortunately, shortly after the acquisition of the property, it was learned that the site was contaminated with perchloroethylene and trichloroethylene. And so since that time, the city, on behalf of Chaz, has really led the effort to cause a remediation of that site, which has included both groundwater and soil remediation. We've made certainly a significant amount of progress over the time to where I believe we're seeing an end in sight, but there's still a little bit of additional work that's being asked of us to complete by the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board. And so with that, this item before you is dealing with two consultant professional service provider agreements, both with the firm of Nino and Moore, who has been the environmental consulting firm that we've been working with for several years, specific to this site. And the only real difference between the two contracts is effectively the scopes of work, because there's one scope of work that is eligible and can be funded by a SCAP grant that we received. And then, of course, for the scope of work that can't be funded by that SCAP grant, then effectively we have a contract to be funded by the housing assets successor. And so with that, this item is authored by Deputy City Manager Tony Camargo. He's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council Board of Directors approve the execution of a consultant professional services provider agreement in the amount of $60,000 by and between the city as housing asset successor, Chaz, and Nino and Moore for remediation services at the former New Way Dry Cleaners as required by Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board, and approve the execution of a consultant professional services provider agreement in the amount of $483,353 by and between the city of Victorville and Nino and Moore for remediation services at the former New Way Dry Cleaners related to the scope of the new site cleanup sub-account program grant agreement with the California State Water Resources Control Board.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Jones?
Oh, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, so in the original SCAP grant of roughly $1.5 million, I know it expired in 2024, were we able to use all of that before it expired, the grant money?
I believe so, but I'm going to refer to Mr. Camargo so he can specifically address that and perhaps even suggest what that was spent on.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So the money that was allocated to the city from the State Water Control Board was fully expended. And because the remediation efforts weren't complete, we applied for additional grant funding. And then the council actually took action on April 15th to allow us to accept this grant. So we're almost there, but to answer your question, ultimately, we did use all the funds that were given to us previously.
Got it. And then with what we're currently dealing with, I know we still have some work to do, but we're largely good to go. Is that fair?
Correct. So there's 14 current wells and around the site. Out of the 14 wells, there's one site, it's P4, the piezometer, that's actually showing a contaminant still. And that's just over the federal level. The federal requirement's 5 and we're at 31. So we're close. We started at 150, so we're slowly declining and getting to that threshold. But Lahontan's requiring us to continue our remediation efforts and monitoring.
So we went from
150
to 31 over the course of how many years did it take us to reduce that much?
So 150 was documented in 2022.
Okay, so that's pretty substantial. Let me ask you this then, on the ones that are good to go, if I could phrase it that way, is there any risk of there being a rebound on those?
There are. But since we've been tracking everything for 4+ years, we haven't seen any rebound on those wells. It's just been the contaminants related to piezometer 4, which is related to the old Taylor site.
And the goal then with all of this is to get us in a place that's acceptable with Lahontan, et cetera. And then we're not going to be responsible for this in perpetuity. Like at one point, we're going to be absolved of the issue here, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
If I might, just to clarify on that point, and so what we're looking to achieve effectively is to get the detection level of the contaminants either below an acceptable threshold level or non-detect. And so ultimately, when we get to that point where all of the wells being measured are either below or at non-detect, effectively, we would go back to Lahontan and ask for basically a closeout letter. Is there a more technical term than that? But it would be some kind of closeout document that effectively would be recorded on the property to show that the environmental contamination's been satisfied. That's the typical process that folks go through when dealing with that on a particular property, because in this case, because you do have groundwater and you do have a gradient of that groundwater flowing through the site, the closure letter will effectively identify that you've satisfied it, so as to avoid the potential to where, let's say, 5 years or even 10 years from now, perhaps there was a detect. You know, it's certainly easier to identify then that if there's a detection, it's probably flowing from some other location, not from our property.
Got it. And I think that's a really important point. So once, and I fully expect that we'll get such a letter, I mean, that really says that Victorville has done its part, right? Because our water is important to us and to our citizens, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Godin,
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving.
Yes, the other wells that you mentioned, are we at a level at the threshold level where it's acceptable, or are we at a place where, I'll use Mr. Metzler's term, we're at non-detect? Where are we?
Correct. So the other 13 wells, they all show non-detect levels,
They're-
which are
okay.
all below federal and state requirements.
Okay, so it's not that we're below the threshold. We're not detecting anything.
Nothing that exceeding any state or federal laws or levels. There's other chemicals, but the main one is the TCE and the PCE. That's really what's contaminating groundwater. But there's other chemicals like it's chloride that show in the water, but it's nothing that isn't uncommon.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Yeah, so do we own this property? Did the city ascertain the property when all this went down?
We own the property through the housing asset successor.
Is it more than one lot or just the one where New Way was?
It's 2 legal lots, right? 2 legal lots. So yeah, it was New Way, and then they had what was in the back? The tailor shop? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were 2 legal parcels. Yeah.
And when it all, I know I'm getting a little ahead, but when it all comes to an end, are we dismantling the wells and capping them off and goodbye, or what?
So within the scope that the council awarded to Nino and Moore, and in the SCAP grant, there's the removal of all the wells and all the equipment. So once we get the final approve out and the closeout letter from Lahontan and the State Water Board, we can then remove all that equipment and dispose of that at an appropriate hazardous waste center.
Okay, thank you, guys.
I have done. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the council and council acting as the city, as housing assets successor, take action in accordance with the recommendations set forth on the agenda.
Second.
First by Councilmember Jones, second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Councilmember Jones, comments on the pending motion?
I have none. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Yeah, we should be getting good at this. Like we've had to. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Godin,
Happy to see this continuing to move forward.
Councilwoman Irving,
Comments, thank you.
and I have none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 22, interagency agreement with Victor Valley Transit Authority for bus shelter maintenance. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Throughout the city, there's been identified approximately 346 bus stops, and among those bus stops, about 103 are actually improved with improvements such as an actual shelter, benches, and trash cans. And through our Public Works Department, we've actually taken on the responsibility of maintaining those shelters. So that's making sure that they're cleaned, that the trash is emptied, that they're maintained structurally from a structural and even a physical appearance perspective. And so we've been taking that responsibility on for years, as far back as I can remember. And the principal funding source over that time as well has been LTF, local transportation funding, which is a derivative from the Measure I sales tax. And the LTF funding is largely intended to satisfy mass transit. And over the years, the funding available to the city has been declining. So much so that over the last couple of years, we've actually had to depend on our general fund to keep the public works operations continuing, because the work that they do is pretty amazing. And it's not something that we believe would be good for the city in terms of trying to maintain a clean sense at those sites, and then having to take the crews away from doing that work. So we've continued to maintain that and basically relying on the general fund to do it. However, over the course of time, we as staff have been working with the VVTA, really trying to encourage them to take on at least the cost to basically mitigate our costs associated with maintaining them, because effectively the shelters are really, from our view, a function or a part of the larger transit system. It just so happens it's in our right of way, and we want to continue to own those improvements. And so with that, we've worked with VVTA effectively to develop a relationship that allows for them to reimburse us, the city, for our costs associated with maintaining those same improved bus stops. And so with that, this agreement does do that. Effectively, it will free up the general fund from having to continue to shoulder those costs. And so with that, the item before you has been authored by your Director of Public Works and Water, Mr. Doug Matthews. He is available via Zoom tonight. And also Mr. Juan Robinson, the Assistant Director of Public Works, is available via Zoom. They're both available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council adopt Resolution Number 25-058, approving a budget amendment for fiscal year 2025-2026 to include additional revenue in the amount of $207,480.70 for the interagency agreement with the Victor Valley Transit Authority for bus shelter maintenance. Approve the interagency agreement by and between the City of Victorville and VVTA for maintenance, repair, and cleaning of bus shelters and amenities within the city, with an initial 10-year term and an option to renew in 5-year increments. Authorize the mayor to sign the agreement on behalf of the city. Authorize city staff to invoice VVTA quarterly for reimbursement based on actual costs incurred in an amount not to exceed $207,480.70 for the first year, with a 3% increase annually thereafter, and accept revenue from VVTA as reimbursement for services performed under the terms of the agreement.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yeah, so going over this, this is gonna include, or enable us to, purchase a new truck and pressure washer to keep our equipment up to par?
If I might, I'd like, 'cause I think there's been a lot of work and effort, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in this document. Maybe Mr. Matthews can speak to the better detail of what he was able to work out with VVTA to include as the scope.
Yeah, good evening. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Gotcha.
So, okay, so yes, we did include depreciation costs so that we're able to replace equipment to be able to clean these shelters. So that is part of the agreement, yes.
That's actually all I have. Thanks, Ugg.
Councilwoman Irby?
No, this report was very thorough. Thank you.
Councilwoman Jones?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a question. I see that in the new agreement here that the VVTA will be taking on the responsibility for managing the advertising programs that we have at our bus shelters. I know that the city of Victorville had guidelines as to what could or could not be displayed in those advertisements. I'm wondering if that will be written into the agreement or if they're already in place by the VVTA.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. It's possible that they could be written into the agreement. However, they already do have a policy in place that's fairly detailed as to what is permissible in terms of advertisement. I believe that's likely because they have advertisement certainly within their facilities or their buses, I should say. And so I've looked at those and they certainly fit. They actually look very comparable to some of what we have in ours. So I would suspect if they don't write it in, that they still maintain a policy that they currently have on the books.
Very good, thank you.
And you do, I was going to have questions or statements at least. Mr. Metzler, I want to say it was probably around 1995 that the city gave over to VVTA. It was probably around 1990 we started it. But of the 346 stops in the city of Victorville, that each one has a sign, 103 have an actual bench of some type, whether it be a semi-seat or an actual bench. 20,000 inspections. They washed 6,300. They removed 1,600 bags of trash. 207 locations, 1,600 square feet of graffiti, and citizen complaints. With what we wrote into this agreement, is it more, or are we going to keep our same status of the great work they've done to this point?
I believe it's intended to maintain, but I'm not confident about that. So, Mr. Matthews, can you speak to that in terms of staffing levels?
I can. So those costs that we came up with are actually based on our historical costs. So we're not going to reduce staff. We're not going to reduce any of our level of effort. It'll be the same as we've been doing with a 3% escalator as it goes. So, but we will bill for actual costs. So if we do spend less for some reason, we will bill them less.
Thank you, sir. Also, Mr. Metzler, when SBCTA took LTF funds from us because they felt bus shelter maintenance and also sidewalks leading to bus shelters weren't a bus shelter issue, is there anything that we're going to get with maybe of getting new sidewalks to our bus shelters? That was part of the LTF funding we lost, was to build new sidewalks to our bus shelters.
I don't believe that's included, but Mr. Matthews, is that somehow addressed? Would that be part of the reimbursement if we have to take on additional costs? How would you attend to that? I know we have other funds as well for sidewalks.
Correct. And that's a separate funding source, but I'll let Juan answer that one.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Yes, we do actively work with VVTA on Article 3 grant funding that will lead us to provide shelter stops and sidewalks and ADA ramps.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the work you and your staff put into this, Mr. Matthews. At this time, I motion that the Victorville City Council recommend with staff's, approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
Second.
I have no pending comments on the motion. Councilwoman Jones?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving?
No comments, thank you.
Councilwoman Godan?
None, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 23, purchase of a Clary uninterruptible power supply UPS system for signalized intersections. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, currently there's 100 traffic signalized intersections in the city, and approximately 85 of those intersections operate using our standardized Clary UPS system, and UPS stands for uninterruptible power supply system. And so with that, among the 85 units, 22 have reached an age where they are not serviceable anymore. And so this item effectively is purchasing 22 UPSs to replace those that are no longer serviceable. And so with that, the item has been authored by your Director of Public Works and Water, Mr. Doug Matthews. He's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council approve the purchase of 22 Clary uninterruptible power supply systems from Next Tech Systems, Inc. for a not-to-exceed amount of $179,199.76.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Irving?
I do not have any questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Jones?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
None.
And the only thing is, Mr. Metzler, I have a question. Under the account code, what's paying for this? Street lighting district, general fund, what's paying for this?
There's two funding sources. One is the Street Lighting Assessment District Fund, and then the other is Measure I.
And the street lighting, that's the one that comes on my tax bill, that street lighting fund.
Street Lighting Assessment District funded through the property tax collections, yes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. At this time, I'll invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff recommendation as presented in the agenda.
Second.
We have a first by Councilmember Godin, second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Councilwoman Godin, any comments on the pending motion?
I have none, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving?
No comments, thank you.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 24, approval of final track map number 18980. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item involves a 17-lot residential subdivision in the general area of the city, fronting logical extension of Second Avenue, just north of Silica Drive and south of Nisqually. And really what this item is doing is taking a tract map from its tentative state and actually getting it into a permanent or vested state. And so with that, the item before you is dealing with the final tract map, which with the subdivision improvement agreement that this item is asking you to approve as well. With the two combined, it'll allow the map to vest or basically record finalizing those lots, which is effectively a precursor then to readying the property for actual residential construction. And so with that, the author on the item is your city engineer, Mr. Freddie Bonilla, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council approve final tract map number 18980 and approve the execution of a subdivision improvement agreement, including a lien agreement as security for the public improvements between the subdivider, Silica Homes LLC, and the city.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving?
No questions, thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman?
I have none.
And I have none. I'll invite a motion for this item. Motion to adopt staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
Second.
I have no comments on the pending motion. Councilwoman Irving?
No comments, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
No comments?
Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman?
I have none.
Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 25, Building 701 Demolition Standard Construction Agreement Project CC 25-134. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This item involves the proposed demolition of a building at the former George Air Force Base, now Southern California Logistics Airport. It's a 1968 vintage, two-story, 19,800 square foot building that really was an office building. It was hasn't been occupied certainly since the base closed, and so it's presumed that before base closure it was occupied and used. Staff has determined that there's no value in this building, reusing it in its existing structure. And so with that, staff also believes that there's much greater value in the property, including the property that the building sits on, but also the property surrounding it, so that that property could be made available for a new development opportunity. This property that's located just south and west of the air traffic control tower at the main entrance to the airport, right there where George Boulevard effectively intersects with Phantom. And so with that, the item is authored by your airport director, Mr. James Murawski. He's available here and available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Board of Directors approve the award of a standard construction agreement with Vertex Civil LLC for Building 701 demolition project CC 25-134 with the total compensation not to exceed $355,360.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Mayor Protem Harriman?
Does that, his price include environmental inspection and all that other stuff they have to do? Do we have to do any of that, or is it included in his contract? And I'm referring to dust, and because that building's pretty old.
So yes, during the course of the construction and demolition, they will be on there on site doing their dust mitigation, the spraying of the water, et cetera. But the asbestos surveys and lead surveys were already performed. And with this work, they're also going to be removing the asbestos and lead material and disposing it according to regulation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Very welcome.
Councilwoman Jones?
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Metzler, this is, I'm correct, this is off airport property?
This is kind of a tweener. What would you call it? Because it's on the old PBT, it's on PBT property, but it's outside the fence.
It's actually considered EDC property. Not making more complicated, but we do consider it being on airport, just with the location of the property adjacent to the air traffic control tower, plus the development for the air side for possible hangar or aviation use.
All right, so then with that, assuming there's going to be demolition, we are anticipating that there's going to be a demand for that property? And that's the demolition, correct?
Certainly, and it's kind of an interesting position that we're in now because of the occupied state that the airport largely is experiencing, that we're actually looking at either reusing buildings and investing in them substantially or clearing them certainly one of the things that we've looked at in this particular site is that once it's demolished, there's a good rectangular area of real estate available that certainly can accommodate something bigger than what's there now, and also satisfy some of the industrial demand that we're seeing. So this is the first step in probably a few steps. I would envision once we're done with the demolition, then we'd probably look to bring on an architect to start doing some site planning to figure out, what types of layouts can actually work on that site. And of course, once we have site plan or site plans, that could actually be used not only to go through the entitlement process, but we can actually use that to effectively sell to the marketplace to see if there in fact is demand, whether it's us, building the building, us partnering with somebody, or effectively us doing a real estate transaction where the property's leased and somebody goes vertical with the construction.
But to engage in this, there's a reasonable belief that there will be good demand.
There is, yes.
And so then may I just say, the less asbestos, the greater the mitigation, the better, right, for our city. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Irby?
No questions, thank you.
They have done. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff's recommendation.
Second.
From the council acting as SCLAA Board of Directors.
Second.
First by Councilwoman Jones, second by Mayor Protem Harriman. Councilwoman Jones, any comments on the pending motion?
None, thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman?
I have none.
Councilwoman Irby?
No comments, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
None, thank you.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 26, Waste Tire Enforcement Grant Budget Amendment. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item involves the award of another grant to the city, basically to support our tire, our tire abatement program that's administered through our code enforcement department. And so with that, this item does create appropriations on the revenue and expense side. The better details of the scope of work under this grant can be answered by your code enforcement official, Mr. George Durant, who's also the author on this item.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council adopt Resolution Number 25-007, approving a budget amendment for fiscal year 2025-2026 to appropriate $64,335 in both revenue and expenditures related to the Waste Tire Enforcement Grant as awarded by the California Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery, CalRecycle.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilmember Irving?
No questions, thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman?
Yeah, does this grant cover an enforcement of any type? Do we have any kind of hand in enforcing there's some pretty bad looking tire places out there. I don't know. I've seen some big piles.
I believe it does, but I wouldn't be doing justice if we didn't provide your code enforcement official to really speak to that, along with the other objectives that we have and that we accomplish using these grant funds.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. The grant pays for the inspections of waste tire generators, Costco, some of the mom and pop smaller generators. It also pays for education. It pays for surveillance. It pays for patrols. It pays for investigations for illegally dumped tires. It pays for the disposal of some tires, although there's another grant that also pays for disposal of tires. But it's primarily focused on regulating and tracking the collection and transportation of waste tires.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
And I have done. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff's recommendation.
Second.
The first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Potem Harriman. Councilwoman Jones, comment on the pending motion?
Yes, well, I'm certainly all for, well, first of all, hats off for this grant. Seems to me that the city of Victorville is on fire for getting grants. Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Your team is amazing. But that said, I'm all for anything we can do to get rid of our waste tire cemeteries, as it were. So thank you to everyone.
Mayor Potem Harriman?
I have none.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Irving?
No comments, thank you.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin.
Yes.
Councilmember Irving.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 27, City Manager's Report. Mr. Metzler, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We do have a few items to share with you. On the Animal Services side of the house, we had another successful pet vaccination and license clinic on Saturday, June 21st at the Animal Care and Adoption Center. In total, we administered over 700 vaccines, licensed and microchipped more than 200 dogs, and found loving homes for 9 dogs. So a big thank you to all the dedicated staff who made that event a success. Certainly couldn't have been done without you. On the code compliance side of the house, the Code Compliance Division certainly had a busy 4th of July holiday, having received more than 300 online reports and 158 calls about illegal fireworks. As a result, we've counted thus far 65 citations being issued. We certainly appreciate the community's help in reporting these violations and supporting efforts to keep our neighborhoods safe. Homeless engagement team recently wrapped up a quarterly encampment cleanup. This large-scale cleanup was carried out over 4 weekends in a joint effort between code compliance and the Public Works Sanitation team. More than 50 tons of waste were removed from 29 encampments in areas like the Mojave River bed, Oro Grande Wash, and near the Mall of Victor Valley. These cleanups make a big difference, helping keep our community cleaner and improving quality of life for everybody in Victorville. On the community services side of the house, we will be hosting our final Concerts in the Park event this Friday, July 18th, 6 p.m. at Hook Park. Join us for live entertainment by Queen Legion, Queen tribute band. The final round of our 2025 Victorville Sings competition will also be taking place. So city booths, Kids Zone, the food vendors, come out and check it out. Engineering side, last week, Southern California Edison completed the installation of 30 new streetlights in Old Town Victorville. A total of 24 were installed on existing wooden poles and 6 on new poles. So that's a pretty big deal for Old Town. On Monday, July 28th, the newly constructed traffic signal at Village and Puesta del Sol will be activated. This will actually turn into the city's 101st signalized intersection in operation. City and Burtech will be hosting my favorite event of the year, which is Free Dump Day this Saturday, July 19th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the former UP site just off Forest and 8th Street. City of Victorville residents are encouraged to take advantage of this free dump day to dispose of extra trash, including mattresses, old furniture, and yard trimmings. And then finally, City of Victorville has launched the Old Town Victorville Cleanup Project, offering free weekday curbside pickup of bulky items, hazardous waste, recyclables, and more to 276 eligible households and businesses through August 29th, 2025. This is an effort is a part of our larger plan to clean and beautify the Old Town neighborhood. So far, we've collected nearly 12 tons of waste, making a big impact in that area. And then finally, I'll forward this email to you that has a summary of all of the ongoing projects that are going through the development process here with us at the City of Victorville. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Item 28, discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. Councilwoman Godin.
I have none.
Councilwoman Irving.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Councilwoman Jones.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. Item 29, reports from council members. Councilwoman Jones.
I have nothing at this time.
Councilwoman Godin.
I have nothing.
Councilwoman Irving,
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman.
Yes. Well, I noticed a big difference in Fourth of July fireworks this year. Pre and post. But the Fourth of July itself night, I just think that everything went a lot smoother. There still was some activity, and maybe we can work even a little harder on that. But I just want to commend the fire department and city staff and everybody who had a hand in getting that word out there, because it apparently had an effect this year. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to remind everybody, council is going to be dark on August 5th. We're inviting everybody out to National Night Out, which will be at Eucalyptus Park, or Sunset Park, over there on Eucalyptus. You can look it up on the city's website for time starting and everything like that. Please come out and say thank you to our first responders. We'd like to see you out there. That's all I have. At this time, it's 7:59. Meeting's adjourned.